Hello and welcome to the project demonstration for Project 4 Part 2 of the Distributed Operating Systems class at the University of Florida. My name is Uzair and I'll be giving you a demo of how everything works. First show the working project, and then after that I'll try to go through the code and just discuss how certain things were done. And I'll also go through the JSON API that was implemented specifically for this project. So in order to run the application, I need to run the command rebar3 shell because this project was compiled using rebar, and I'll just let it go for a quick minute. Okay, so it's done. For this project, I also built a front-end UI, although it was not required for the project. So I'd like to take a moment to kind of showcase that as well. Uh, Here it is. So the front end is actually built using React.js, but since this isn't really a part of the project description, I will refrain from talking too much in depth about the front end. I'm going to first try and log in as a random user. I've chosen the username Percival. If I hit login, you'll see that now I'm redirected to my homepage. And also, if you go and check the logs in the project, it actually logs that a user has logged in. Also, take this time to log in again, but as a different user. Spell it. 1 second. Okay, so this is, I'm going to sign in as a different user, set some random password, doesn't really matter. In, and this is user 2. So I'm going to demonstrate some of the basic features. So of course, this application supports the ability to tweet. So I'm going to make a tweet, and this tweet goes, and it shows up in my feed as well. And if I were to have any followers, it would show up in their feeds as well. So now let's see if I can try and find this user possible from my other user that I've logged in as. So I'll search for that message, that tweet that I just made, which is world. I'm just going to use world to search for it, and this shows the user. So at this point, I can choose to follow this user. If I hit follow, which I did just now, I would not receive any tweets that were made by Percival in my feed. And if you go back and check in the console, you would see that it actually says that it logged a tweet from before that was made by user Percival. And since Ryden followed Percival, it also made a note of that, just to show how it shows up in the terminal. So now my home feed is empty as this user Ryden, but if now Percival were to make any tweet, like so, it would show up in my feed, but it would also show up in Ryden's feed, like so. And it only makes sense to respond back, so I'm going to respond. So it shows up in my feed, but since Percival isn't really following Ryden, it doesn't show up in Percival's feed. So let me look for mentions of my own name, and I can see that I have retweet showing up here. Now, if I were to retweet this, which I just did, go back to my home feed, I can see that I retweeted this tweet by Ryden. And if you go to Ryden's feed, Ryden can also see that Percival had retweeted their tweet. So we have seen so the basic features that we covered just now. So there is search. So the search is very generic. So instead of targeting like hashtags and usernames, the tweet targets everything. So I could implement a hashtag so that I can say hashtag line is cool. So the search is generic. It also handles hashtags. So it's not that's like an umbrella search that covers pretty much everything. So it didn't really target any specific hashtags in specific, but the search actually covers the entire text. And yeah, those are the results. That's the front end UI. And I think at this time I will go back to the console and maybe just go through the code. So a little bit so it's easier to see. So the entry point of our application, or at least which the part of the application which is of significance, is the Twitter app file. So in the Twitter app file, I'm using Cowboy to basically set up the server and also serve the static files as well as the front end. So here is the code for that. So I'm serving the index.html file, which is in my private folder right here. As you can see, this is empty, but I'm using React CDN to kind of construct the DOM and just like the entire homepage, the website, the UI. But like I mentioned, it's not of significant. It's not of significance, so I'm going to refrain from talking about that. But just coming back to our Twitter app, I'm sorry, here it is, Twitter app. So this is where we serve the index.html page. All these static files are placed in the static directory within the private folder, and they're served from here. And of course, the WebSocket. You can connect to the WebSocket by going to /WebSocket. And one of the things that I'm passing in to ws_h file, which is over here. So this is a file which basically has the implementation for the Cowboy WebSocket. So one of the things that I'm passing on as a parameter here is the Twitter engine process ID. So the Twitter engine is what we built in the first part one of the project. I'll try to go through that as well. And this basically lets me interface or use. This is basically the WebSocket interface that lets me that lets users communicate with the Twitter engine process that we spawn here. So going through the ws_hash. So the entry point here. Just talk about a couple of interesting things that I did. So one thing is I set idle timeout to infinity so that the server doesn't disconnect if there is no input from the client, because in Cowboy by default, it happens that if there's no activity on the connection, it automatically turns it off. So I set the idle timeout to infinity to make sure that that doesn't happen. So the WebSocket handle is the function that gets called for every frame that is received over the WebSocket. Twitter engine is provided to us in the state from the Twitter app from over here. So we're passing it as an argument. So this will be part of the state. And basically, whenever I get a message, I'm using this package, JS1 or JSON. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. We're basically using this package to decode the message. And then I'm using basically kind of like a switch statement, if you will. A switch to basically just go through the motions of different actions, which is taken by the user. So if someone attempts to log in, I get the username and password. And although I did not demonstrate in the UI, there is password validation, which I can show by means of Postman, which I will in a minute. But for right now, so this is a case. This is basically a switch, and then based on the action we get, I think this is also a good time to kind of share the API that I designed. And I'll just hold it to the side. So when someone is logging in, they need to pass in. So action is common in all the messages. It describes what is the action that the user is taking. So if they're trying to log in, then that is login. If they're trying to tweet, that's tweet. If they're retweeting someone's tweet, that's another action. If they're searching for something in specific, there is search. And if they're following some other user, then there is follow. And basically, we just pass to Twitter engine the action that we want to perform, which we decipher from using this action attribute that we get in the JSON object, and then passing and getting the necessary other attributes, which you also get. For example, username and password. We fetch those. We get that from the decoded JSON object, and then just pass it to the Twitter engine. And the Twitter engine code is quite simple as well. So try Twitter engine, just to keep everything super simple and super clear. I set it up like this. Some basic pattern matching to kind of get different messages. And then I just maintain a state here, which kind of loops through, and every time there is some sort of operation done on the internal state or the internal in-memory database, if you would like to call it that, then that is held in this mutated state variable for each like action, and then pass it back to start, so it kind of like loops through again and again with the updated state. So I guess that is the most of it. Most of these things are just already from part one, so I'll not take too much time discussing it, but I will talk about it. So actions here we have follow, login, search, and tweet. So for the login part, I think I can discuss that at the very least. I check if the user who is trying to log in is already in the database. If they're already in the database, then I try to get their saved password. And if the password is valid, then I store their process ID. Process ID is how we communicate with the WebSocket. So I store the process ID against the username inside of a connection mapping hash map. If it is not, then we terminate the WebSocket and also provide a reason for why we did it, bad password. If the user is not present at all in our database, then that's a brand new user. So we basically just make an entry in both our connection mapping, saving the process ID, as well as the saving the user for the first time in the data store. And this is basically the login section. And basically the user object or user record in our so-called in-memory database is we basically store the password, a list of followers, and then the feed. Feed is basically all the tweets that the user receives. Followers, maintain a list of followers so that we can, whenever this person tweets, we can send that tweet to everybody who is following this person. So there's followers for that, and then there is, that pretty much describes everything. And then there is the tweet function. So the tweet function is very simple. Again, we just get the username, get their followers, and then kind of loop through the followers list, and then keep sending that tweet to everybody who is a follower. And then we reduce the list. Eventually, this base case will be reached, and then return the final state, which is passed back to Twitter engine. So yeah, that basically is it. I'll also try to demonstrate real quickly just a moment, the authentication. So I'll try to log in real quick here. So, okay, I don't have the thing running. I'll quickly run it for just once more. Okay, so now I have my server up and running. I can connect. So it returns login success true which is good. Now, if I were to disconnect and then let me see and let me try to reconnect, but I will input the wrong password. Let's end this, and then yep. So the hold on a second. There we go. So I connected first. I forgot to hit send, so that's why awkward pause. But once I hit send, you can see that I tried to log in again, but the password was incorrect, so the connection terminated immediately. And you get the logs for it here as well. User is not authenticated. Password is not valid, and so the connection is terminated. And there you have it. So this is the project. Thank you for your time and looking through this video. Uh, yeah, thanks for